Hello and welcome to 1874. It's time for our Monday podcast, and today I am joined by the Athletics' Jacob Tanswell to look back on Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 1. Aston Villa surely the weekend winners with the way the league table is now looking, and also the way the results went at the weekend, albeit Newcastle play Leicester tonight, so we can probably say they might be up there with the winners table with us. Right then, this show is sponsored by NordVPN. If you want to get a huge discount and 4 months free, head to 1874.io/NordVPN. It's completely risk-free because you'll get a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, and it will help you get a little bit more extra football in your life. Jacob, great weekend, brilliant result from Villa, brilliant first half performance, absolutely blew Nottingham Forest away in a kind of 15-20 minute blitz. Set well in the Premier League now with the way the results have gone at the weekend, as I just mentioned. Probably one of our best results of the season at Villa Park, I would say, but just a really enjoyable day in the sunshine of Villa Park, wasn't it?
I completely agree. I think it was probably Villa's most important result of the season so far.
Yeah.
I think it seems like with every week, and I think it's because we're at the crunch stage of the season where it feels like every league game and even every Champions League, FA Cup game is going to feel like the most important game. And that's just the way it's going to be for the next few weeks, which is going to be very exciting. I thought it was a fantastic game. You know, if you talk from a purely neutral point of view, I thought it was very, very entertaining. You obviously had everything really in terms of Villa being absolutely electrifying in those first 15 minutes. You know, probably up till half time, they were very strong. And then you see it flips at half time. There's a bit of jeopardy in there. There's a hanging on back to the wall. There's chances regular, end to end at times, lack of control, everything that was, that football fans love really, and that's complete opposite to what we saw in the Manchester derby yesterday. So really good game for everyone apart from Nottingham Forest fans, and yeah, I thought Villa were absolutely wonderful in that first half, and on that basis alone probably deserved the luck they got in the second half.
Yeah, I've just done some Irish media this morning, and they asked me about the Manchester City game, and I watched 90 minutes of the game and watched Match of the Day 2 this morning, and still couldn't offer any kind of analysis. There was nothing for me to analyse. Asked me, and I just didn't answer the question at all. It was such a tedious game of football, one of the worst games of football I think I've ever watched.
Dan, can I just say, I watched the first half, but then the second half, luckily, don't ask me why, it's a long story. I went to go watch Craig Revel-Horwood sing.
I did see this yesterday on your Instagram. I was confused by it, to be honest.
Genuinely, that was far superior entertainment than that second half. I watched some of the highlights back this morning, and I'm very relieved that Craig Revel-Horwood came to my aid.
How did you? What made you? Is that your idea? Is that something? Is that like you? Mrs. has come up with a date night, and that's what she's come up with. Obviously, you like your dancing. We've seen that previously. We know that you do like to dance, Jacob.
Yeah, it was the in-laws' idea. They were in. They were fisted for a little while, and Bruno Tonioli was in front of me. We had everything there. It was wonderful. But anyway, back to Villa.
No, I'd rather talk about what you did with Bruno and Craig Revel, to be honest, Jacob. But yeah, let's go on and let's talk about Villa. You're the guy that seems to know who's going to play for Villa. I can definitely tell whenever you do a preview show. There's some knowledge there of what the team might be. In my opinion, you did it with Pau Torres on Wednesday. You've done it previously with Tyrone Mings, I believe. I think you've done it with Kamara as well. So I didn't speak to you before the game on Saturday. Did the team take you by surprise? 8 changes. You can kind of decipher who's going to play on Wednesday by who didn't start on Saturday. Did that surprise you that Villa made so many changes?
Definitely. I don't, I think there's a few journalists that like to get team news early, but it doesn't really do anything for me. So there's been a few times this season, I got told about Jadon Philogene starting against Bayern Munich 2 days before, but I thought it doesn't really do much for me in terms of, we can put the story out, it might get some clicks or hits, but it'll upset a few people. So it doesn't really do much for me. So I do get team news sometimes, but I don't go looking for it. But this time I had a sense and thought that Onana and Maatsen would start, but I had no idea that there would be 8 changes. I think I was blown away for the next 10-15 minutes, really, just trying to work it out. I thought, yeah, I completely understand, and I can understand the strength of Villa and how great a squad they've got, and really on paper that looks a really strong team. But it's just more a case of there are a few players in there that had lacked rhythm, that hadn't played a lot, were either coming back from injury as well. And I thought it's such a big game this season. to have those players coming back into the team was a bit of a risk, really. But I think the opposite of it was true in terms of it had the right effects in terms of energy, in terms of intensity, in terms of its desire to prove that they should be in the team, and you saw that in the first quarter of an hour, really. So it was a risk, but ultimately I think it paid off.
I think the only one that massively surprised me, because you could have me and Dave do the preview show most days, and we get the team wrong. It's able to pick that team, but if I was to 4 locks for any game, I think Conser would be one of those. Rogers, Tillemans, Martinez, they play generally, don't they? That they start there. So I think the only one that massively surprised me was Conser not starting, and all the other players that came in. I suppose you could have made a case individually for any of them to play, but I suppose just not at that volume. That was the surprise.
Yeah, I agree. Usually Emery doesn't change too much. I think before the game, Villa were ninth in terms of changes made to their starting 11, and a lot of that was due to injuries and the number of games. So that was probably the explanation. But the fact is, Villa, relatively speaking, apart from Bailey, had a clean bill of health. They had a big squad, and they were well set. So I just thought Emery would do what he usually does, where he'd make 3 or 4 changes. He's not immune to changing a backline. He's done it numerous times this season. But to have such sweeping changes was quite a sight, really. But I think overall, wasn't surprised, like you say. I thought Ezri Konsa would play, and maybe Andres Garcia wouldn't, kick a ball again this season. But he obviously started, which was probably the biggest surprise. And like you say, Konsa was on the bench.
I suppose him and Marlon both playing down that right-hand side, a relatively new right-hand side there, isn't it? Both players obviously arriving in January. If you were surprised by the volume of changes, were you surprised by the fast start? That must have been in Villa's game plan. Let's try and get at these early. That Forest are a team that I always think when I watch them, they like to feel out a game before they take any risks. They like to sit back and see what's going on. But it's fair to say Villa took complete advantage of that in that first 15 minutes and really blew them away.
Definitely. I think, I mentioned it in my piece this morning. I think the first time Villa really had control of the ball and it settled down was about a minute and a half into the game, and they kept the ball for 50 seconds. And it wasn't a case of what Villa have done previously, where they just put their foot on the sole of the ball and try and coax the team out to come and press them. And it's all very slow, very passive, like it was probably in the game in Nottingham. Villa was trying to switch the ball from side to side. Nottingham Forest were dead keen on not allowing the ball into Yuri Tillemans. Gibbs White would track him everywhere. He scanned in the first 50 seconds. Villa had the ball. He scanned to see where Tillemans was 16 times. So Villa just kept switching the play, pull him out of shape. Using the wings very well. Marlon's energy, Garcia's energy, Matson's energy. These players that were just coming into the team who were very direct, really good ball carriers, and got crosses into the box early. And I think, Asensio got a touch into one that went just past the post from a cross. And it just felt like it was really just setting a tone in terms of, okay, Forest want to feel like they feel their way into the game, like you say. They want to block the central areas. So Villa thought we're going to be attacked really quick and really fast out wide. And I thought Villa did that very well.
Do you think Villa, to an extent, took advantage of Forest? Obviously, didn't have a forward. They kind of changed their system completely to come up with a strikerless system. There's been lots of times this season where they've played with 3 at the back and wing backs. Felt to me like Gibbs White and the two wide lads. He was trying to do a split striker thing. I think in the first half this season, I don't remember a game where Forest have done that this season. So do you think, obviously Villa were brilliant? I think they also maybe took advantage a little bit of the fact that Forest weren't really used to playing that system and playing the way they were asked to play.
Yeah, definitely. I think for Nuno, he was targeting in terms of sitting back, but then hitting on a counter. So they play with split strikers, Alanga, Hudson and Doy. And their game plan was pretty obvious in terms of they let Villa have the ball, they soak up pressure, and then they'd use those 2 runners to attack the space left by the 2 fullbacks being high. So they'll get into that space between Dissect and Garcia, or Mings and Matson, and they run down. I think it was Alanga in the first half, he had that shot past. But yeah, that's why the post, and that was like the archetypal template of what they wanted to do. But with Villa, I think they missed that. They missed that number 9 because Villa could press high, they could counter press very well, and it meant that because they didn't have that focal point up top, Forest had to make shorter passes in more dangerous areas rather than just going long into Chris Wood, for example. So I think it did help to Villa in some extent, but given how well Villa played, I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. It was more a case of in the second half, which we'll come on to, when they're overloading Disasi's side, they're crossing the ball regularly. If Jota is able to get on and end off a few of those crosses, then maybe Chris Wood would have done so as well, and he probably would have been a bit more ruthless.
Yeah, just before we carry on, we've got people watching from all over the place this morning, Jacob. We've got Tom Ryan here from Washington, D.C. That sounds nice.
Wow.
Watching us. We've got Joe here as well from Japan. We've got people watching. Global Greg Evans isn't here, but still a very, very much a global show this morning, Jacob. Let's talk about that first goal. Then I'm sure everyone has seen the analysis on Sky. Everyone has seen the analysis on Match of the Day as well, with Morata and his shin pad. Rogers said in his post match that he kind of noticed him fiddling around and just got on the move. But regardless of what players are doing with their shin pads, when Yuri Tillemans has the ball with that much space and he's got runners in front of him, it's just absolutely crazy how good this guy is. So we'll talk about Rogers' touch and finish shortly. But Yuri Tillemans, every game he probably makes one or two kind of passes like that. We might not always score off it. But the central midfielders go. I just love watching. I always loved watching him at Leicester when Leicester were a good side as well. But just the way he can just play any kind of pass with any part of his foot. The weight of pass is always spot on, whether it's short, whether it's long, whether it's a mid-range pass. Just sums up his season, really, doesn't it? And he will be player of the season, and I would have thought. And you've been writing about him this morning.
Yeah, I thought Morgan Rogers was excellent again, and he showed different sides of his game. But I just felt like Yuri Tillemans deserved his plaudits, really, in terms of how just ingenious he is. I was watching for the first 15 minutes. I thought it's so fascinating how Gibbs White wasn't, he didn't really care about where the ball was out of possession or who had the ball. He was just scanning Tillemans all the time. It was clearly a game plan from Nuno to think, right, Villa like to attack central areas. I think only Chelsea attack central areas more than Villa. And obviously, Yuri Tillemans is probably the key cog in that system. So let's stop him having the ball. And, like I say, Villa had the ball for 50 seconds in the first minute and a half. Tillemans didn't touch the ball once, but he was just making these subtle movements. And in the first 9-10 minutes, he was doing certain little things that were just causing Gibbs White a few issues. So, for example, he would pull out to the left centre-back position. He would stay there, and Gibbs White had an issue. Did he still block the pass into midfield, or did he go and mark Tillemans, which was his remit? He then moved central. Onana then picks the ball. He then spins off Gibbs White's shoulder. He was doing all these little subtle things. I thought, okay, he's just slowly working out some space for himself. It's very tight in there. And then that one moment where Gibbs White switches off, where he's nowhere near Tillemans for that short, quick free kick. Tillemans has that finally, a few seconds and a few yards of space, and he'll punish you. And I think that's what you see with elite players at the elite level. You can concentrate for 89 minutes, but you switch off for one moment and he punishes you. But similar to a heavyweight boxer like Deontay Wilder, he might not do anything for 11 rounds, but he only needs 1 second to be perfect. And that's what Tillemans does time and time again. He gets that space, he gets that time. He sees the run of Rodgers. And how many times has he done it this season? Most minutes, starts every game, most progressive passes of any player at Villa, twice as many as Morgan Rogers, who's second best. He's just a phenomenal talent. And you compare him now to when he started at Villa, and you see a huge process and a huge adaptation.
He's so involved in everything, both defensively and offensively as well. And the ground he covers per game, considering how much football he's played this season, I didn't think he'd go away with Belgium in the last international break, but he did. The guy has played a hell of a lot of football this season, but he still looks so fit, which is one of the things that was labelled at him at Leicester, that he wasn't fit enough and that he couldn't get around the pitch, wasn't mobile enough. But this season, we've seen none of that for Villa. He's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, Jamie Redknapp described him as kind of having a force field around him. I mean, if not pressing him, he's quite criminal, really, and that's where the goal came from. But I feel like even when teams do press him, he's really good in tight spaces as well, and he's really good at making it just look like he's lost control of the ball, and he might get closed down and just quickly picking a pass like with a toe poke or the outside of his boot, just to thread something through. He is an exceptional footballer.
Like they always talk about Paul Scholes when they say he can't really run, he can't really tackle. But I tell you what, he's similar. Remarkable. I think Tillemans can do those things, but it's not. It's what you say is his standout strengths, where his mind is just seconds quicker than most of these midfielders. So they might have physical, athletic gifts on him, but he's just got this mind where he just works so well. Even in the second half, sometimes where Mings would be playing straight balls into him, and any other midfielder, I'd be like, oh my word, like you're literally receiving with your back to goal with 3 angles of pressure around you. You're going to get tackled or you're going to get closed down. But he already knows what he's going to do with it. He just flicks around the corner or spins around the corner. He sees these things 2 or 3 steps ahead. So although he probably didn't touch the ball as much as he usually does in the first 15 minutes, because like I say, Forest are trying to block him off. He created the assist, and he is just the engineer to anything Villa want to do in their build-up. I think he's a brilliant player, and like you say, maybe at the start of the season we thought he might be struggling to play. It's only when Onana when he signed, you thought, okay, Onana and Kamara are going to be a pivot, and Tielemans would have to play either as a 10 or rotate. He's key now, isn't he? And I asked Emery about him afterwards, and Emery he got his finger out like this. He got his hands out like this. It's probably not great for you if you're listening on audio.
No, I don't even know how to describe that. You're doing a money thing there.
It's a bit like if you're thinking of what ingredients are in a cake. You're like, oh yeah. And he just went. Tielemans gives us something different. He just gives us a possession wrinkle, I think, and I just think he's one of those players. A lot of players will probably be linked with other clubs this summer. Some might go. But Tielemans looks like he's a player for the next couple of years.
Yeah, here to stay for Villa. A few more shout-outs. Commodore Turtle is watching in Las Vegas. Some real people watching it in some great places. Adam Diehouse, Morrison's Cafe in Cannock.
I love Cannock.
Does it get better than that? I don't think it does. And then we've got Super Sid from Sydney as well, who mentioned some eye-catching performances from the less regular players during the first half. Matson, Marlon, and Dizazi and Garcia. That's really encouraging. We'll come on to a few of them shortly. Let's just talk about Morgan Rogers' touch and finish. It's just a player playing full of confidence, the way he brings that ball down, and an intelligent finish as well, past one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League this season. Quite weird to see him in that space, because actually left 10, probably the position he's played the least this season, even though arguably you could say it's his position. He's tended to be the central 10 or playing as a right 10 this year in 2025, certainly. So interesting to see him play on the left again. Shows his versatility, that he can play anywhere across that 3 behind the striker. Could probably play as a striker as well, and finished like a striker.
I think he's a superstar in the making. He can play anywhere. Genuinely, I think, I spoke to a few Villa staff members about 12 months ago, and they said he can play anywhere from a number 6 to a number 9, the wings included. And I thought, okay, that might be hysteria. That might be hyperbole. I think he can do anything. I genuinely think he's wonderful. And I said I singled him out afterwards because I thought it was one of his best games in a Villa shirt, and not because it was at his most polished. And I think some people got this misconstrued. In terms of being polished, I don't think he had the space. When you think of Morgan Rogers, you think of him with loads of space, driving at defences. It was quite hard. He was getting tight. Murillo was trying to get tight to him. He was getting pressed at times. He was trying to get fouls. He wasn't winning those fouls. It was a bit of a battle. Second half as well, when Martinez kept aiming long for him, he had to try and be an old-fashioned number 9 in terms of his hold-up play. He'd do everything. But he is a player that can adapt and have an impact anywhere he plays. He's probably best as a number 10. Asensio played there. That's fine. He can play as a right wing. He can play as a left winger. 2 different remits. He can do it. He's so intelligent. I think if you remember 12 months ago, the first couple of games, he was seemingly struggling with what to do out of possession. He was conceding fouls outside the box. He was, quite difficult. And it just seems like everything clicked, and he just learns anything. He's such an intelligent footballer that complements his physical attributes. His decision making is getting better. There's a lot of clubs that are interested in Rodgers. It's not.
Go away, Ornstein. Don't want to say that popping up on my.
Honestly said it, but we've kind of crowbarred things into other pieces recently. About other clubs liking him, other clubs currently in the top 4 in Europe as well. So. There will be interest in him in the summer, and he is definitely a PSR asset if they want to sell him. But I hope every player has a price, of course. But I just really think that he could do one more year at Villa.
More than that.
Yeah, one more year at Villa, and then see where things are. So Villa are still doing what they're doing now. Brilliant. Then great, keep him there, and other players can leave. But as I say, I think he's a superstar in the making, and I think he can be anything he wants to be. Really.
I think next year's Villa's title challenge year.
Okay.
In the growth of the club, I think next year's the title challenge. You won't want to miss out on that. And then the year after, obviously lifting the Premier League trophy. Is he Rodgers a £100 million player now? Would you say?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Incredible to have a year on from buying him, really, or just over a year to have that kind of asset on the books. That is like, I don't even know what to call it, but recruitment 101, brilliant recruitment.
You look at it, he's got a long contract. He's English. He's young. He's got a great availability record. He's got no issues with his attitude. His background checks are very favourable. One of the reasons why Villa actually pushed for him, because Emery liked what they saw in the eye test, but then he obviously deliberated with Mark Harrison, Steve Hopcroft, these guys that work with Morgan at West Brom, and that's when everyone had the encouragement to go and sanction their deal. So there'll be no issues from that if you're looking at him. And you look at, for example, Declan Rice. He's probably had more years in the Premier League. Well, he definitely had more years in the Premier League than Morgan Rogers had when he left for Arsenal.
Yeah,
but he didn't play in the Champions League. He didn't perform at this level so soon into his career. So I think he's 100 million plus, really, and he's a player that, like I said, I think he's going to get many caps for England and do incredible things.
Attackers at a premium as well, so they always go for more.
And he's a really nice kid as well. So
yeah,
it's great to see.
He's like, it's some brilliant recruitment. Villa have done some good recruitment over the years. There's no getting away from that. They've done some bad as well, but pound for pound for what they probably will end up selling him for at some point. Hopefully not for a long time. That is just I honestly think it's one of the best January buys ever. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah, I definitely do. It was quite a weird way of it happening, though, didn't it? Because you just think if Villa didn't have Middlesbrough in the FA Cup at that time, would Emery have come across him? Was he on the radar as such? I know some of the Villa staff were a little bit unsure on him, but others, such as Mark Harrison, were wanting him since he was at Man City.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure whether it happened in January had the Villa Middlesbrough game not happened, but I think if you look at it now, you see how well he's done. It's for £15 million, and Middlesbrough thought they got a fantastic deal for him. It's 100 million plus would be great, but let's just enjoy him and let's see what happens in the summer.
Yeah, sure. We've got Villa on tour, watching live from Paris. Max and Simon, Jacob, and you'll be joining them soon.
I will be Eurostar tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So I look forward to going out to Paris.
Yeah, do check out Max's match day vlog. I would be saying, to be fair, I would be saying this regardless after seeing him watch this, but I'd make a very brief 30-second cameo, I think, on the on the video as well. Yeah, I met Max before the game, so I gave a little score prediction that was incorrect. So spoiler alert there. But yeah, safe travels obviously to everyone who is going to Paris. And Max and Simon, I hope you have a bloody wonderful time there. I really hope that you do. Let's talk about the second goal then, Jacob. And I love this kind of goal from Villa. We've seen this kind of goal so many times under Unai Emery. I don't know whether this is quite sad. I prefer seeing this goal to any type of goal that Villa got. Villa could score someone from 35 yards. Someone could score a free kick from 30 yards. As long as Emery is here, Villa scoring that type of goal will always be my favourite goal. I just absolutely loved it. The way Maatsen fired it across after some kind of work down the left-hand side. I don't think enough players fire the ball across in that way, hard and low. I think sometimes players get in positions and they're still trying to loop it, which I've never understood. But firing the ball across the goal for Marlon to score his second goal in a week, really enjoyable finish. The way he and the ball kind of went into the net, lashed it home. Great goal, Jacob. Just a lovely goal to watch.
Brilliant goal, and I had a great view of it. I was kind of like in line with the cross, and it's a different type of goal that Villa usually score. I know they score from crosses and as Emery, but usually Maatsen will get to the byline and it'll be a cutback, because Maatsen, is his makings in Dutch academies as a winger almost. You saw he could just twist and turn inside out and be really direct and whip it across straight away. He didn't hesitate. It was just all very fluid, and the pass was just excellent in terms of the whip on it. Didn't give Sels a chance to come out and get a touch on it. It didn't give a chance for the Forest defenders to clear it. It was just perfectly into where Marlon was, and the position that Emery wants him to be at the back post between fullback, centre back, is exactly what you want from an Emery winger, and he did that. So it was one of those, like you say, you probably get a lot of joy from it, more so than a 30-yard screamer, because it's one of those that's been worked on in the training ground, one that's been planned religiously by Emery and his coaching staff. So it was a really good goal, and I think that type of goal is just what Villa deserve, really, for how well they played.
Yeah, Maatsen's really starting to improve now, isn't he? There's been some work going on with him behind the scenes all season. Probably hasn't started as many games as he'd like.
Yeah.
But now he's in the ascendancy, and it is a toss-up game to game of who's going to play left back. And I love watching him. I think he's going to be a really good player for Villa moving forward.
Definitely. I think he's getting better defensively. I think he's staying switched on for longer. His concentration's better. I think he's knowing when to overlap and when to bomb and when to hold his position a lot better as well. I think it helps as well when he's got someone like a Morgan Rogers or Jacob Rams in front of him who, are not immune to defensive work. They're very diligent. They like to track as well. Sometimes they go into a back five, back six at times, which I think helps Maatsen as well. I think it's going to be it's very good timing really, because he has been frustrated that he's not played as much. That's understandable. He's probably not going to play in the PSG game, probably some of the bigger games of the season. That's probably going to hurt him, but I think he's probably coming at the right time in terms of he's peaking in performance where Villa can sit down and think, okay, Luka Dean has interest from Saudi. He has interest from other countries. He's got 12 months left of his contract. It's now the time we move him on, and we feel confident Maatsen can step up and we can get another left back to obviously help and add depth as well. So yeah, I think it's coming at a great time. He just needs to be patient and wait till next season really for him to really hit the ground running.
Interesting to see him link up with Marlon as well. Obviously, someone he knows from Dortmund and the Netherlands setup. And what a week for Marlon. We did a pod a few weeks ago, kind of questioning what's going on here. Villa have signed this guy, and he's nowhere to be seen. But you talk about players taking chances. He's been given not much of a chance. Even in the Brighton game, he came on very, very late. But he shows his attitude and shows his perseverance that he did enough with that to score. I'm not sure he would have started this game had he not scored against Brighton. But again, he's played 60 or so minutes this weekend, scored again. I really, really like him. He's gone under the radar with all the other signings that Villa made in January in attacking positions. But every time I've seen him step on the pitch, I've seen something from him that I've really liked.
Yeah, and I think he's really entertaining to watch as well. He's very exciting. Like, he's always trying to do something, isn't he? He's not one of those that plays it safe. He's running. He's driving the ball. In the first couple of minutes, he got a pass played to him. I think it was quite a switch of play, and he got the ball played to him. And usually wingers, will slow down. They'll wait for support. He just literally touched and ran to the byline and whipped across it. And it was, I think it went out for a goal kick or a corner or something, and it didn't come to anything. But it was just like an old-fashioned winger just going down to the byline and crossing straight away, not really waiting for players to join in the attack. I think he's just a very direct player, can do a lot. I think he can play left wing, right wing, number 10, number 9. And like I say, next year, if Rashford doesn't stay, then you'd hope that, and Watkins leaves, you hope that Marlon will get a lot more game time. And he's certainly a player that will chip him with a few goals as well, which is great.
Yeah. It's actually quite a similar first half in a way. It wasn't too dissimilar to last season's game against Forest. Forest obviously weren't the beast that they are today. Well, the first half wasn't actually too dissimilar to that. That's just popped into my head. Before we get into Forest in their defence did still make a couple of chances in that first half, despite it not being good. The ball did flash across the goal a couple of times. Villa got caught in possession, didn't they? For I think it was the Hudson-Odoi chance. Maybe Villa got kind of caught in possession playing out. So Forest did start to kind of give a sign of what might come in the second half at the end of the first half, because they did have a couple of chances. Before we do get into that second half, let's just hear a little bit more about NordVPN. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us. Yeah, thank you to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor us, and do go and check them out. Honestly, it does help you watch extra football that you might not be able to watch without NordVPN, and it helped Jacob a few weeks ago when he was away in Spain as well. So yeah, do check out NordVPN. It is very helpful, and obviously if you use our details, it does help the channel as well. Sean Reynolds just mentioned Marlon's interview over the weekend. It was very good and honest about the whole Champions League exclusion. He's fully focused on Villa as a project and beyond this season. I saw bits of it. I don't know whether you saw it, Jacob. Did you see that interview?
I saw bits of it. I think it was after the game, wasn't it? I was
Yeah.
in the press room. I've seen some of it, but I saw the headline quotes from it. I think Marlon's he's only, what is he, 25, 26? He feels like he does look older. He has been around for a while, but I think he's built enough experience in the bank now where he was annoyed, like we said, and he said, but I think he's quite reflective and understanding of it now. And like you say, if he can play like this every game and make an impact he has, then he's still got a part to play, certainly until the end of the season.
Yeah, I think second half then, just like Villa deserve credit for how they started the first half, I think Forest deserve credit for their recovery in the second half. They were a different outfit. They made changes. Jota Silva pressed, which really helped them. He's not a striker, but I think he behaved as one.
Yeah,
really he did rattle Villa. I was saying Forest were a lot better in the second half. Obviously got their goal, but Villa hung on to get the win and win 2-1. Massive 3 points, as we all know. I want to pick out a couple of things from a Villa perspective from the second half. Before I do that, just firstly, was it that simple that Forest were just better in the second half? Is there any reason for Villa having a bit of a Villa still made chances in fairness, especially in transition when they'd made substance? So it wasn't a bad second half from Villa. I think Forest, to give them credit, were just better.
I don't think Villa were great, to be honest. I think,
but they still made chances though.
They did, but at the same time, you hoped and they expected the reaction from Forest. Like Forest weren't going to be as passive. They were going to come and press. And as Emery explained afterwards, that they did go man for man. And Villa have had issues with teams that go man to man, because I think Villa's first way of beating that press is to go long, and last year that was great, really, in terms of Watkins would be able to chase into those channels and get up to the pit, high up the pitch. But Martinez kept going long, and he was aiming for Rodgers, and Rodgers would either make it stick, but then go down, trying to get a free kick, or we didn't have players near him, and the ball kept coming back, and it just felt like Villa didn't really manage it very well. Emery said afterwards that he wanted players, the best way to control a game is to keep ball possession. I don't think they did that particularly well. There was panic all over, all over the pitch all of a sudden from a really good, confident first half, and I don't want to pick on Axel Disasi, but I thought he was quite poor second half.
Yeah, same.
I thought he was good first half, really strong, very confident, but right back, for a big guy, I thought he was quite passive in his defending. He let crosses into the box. He didn't get tight enough to stop the crosses. Hudson-Odoi's obviously got the speed advantage over him and probably every other player on the pitch, so he needed to compensate for that and get tighter to stop him turning initially, stop him getting into full stride. Didn't do that, and Villa had a few warnings before their goal. And they kept putting crosses over into the box. I thought Jota helped with their man-to-man press. He was a player that, like you say, he's not a striker, but he's what you want from a sub. He'll get in amongst it. He'll wind the opposition up. He'll rattle a few cages, and he'll make Forest more competitive. So he was good. I thought Forest were good. Villa recovered towards the end, but there was a time where we've seen Villa in second halves this season, especially early on, where they just looked pretty backs against the wall and pretty rushed.
What did you make? Why do you think Garcia was hooked at half time to bring Conser on? What do you think the reason was for that?
I really don't know. I do think Emery probably kind of guessed that Forest were going to come and probably go a bit more direct and put more crosses into the box, but he probably thought the crosses would come from Matson's side and Disasi would be able to clear them from heading them away. I think with Garcia as well, he's not played a lot recently as well, and he's the type of player that still adapts, but also he does a lot of sprints. You watch it, he just sprints all the time. He's not a right back that's going to hold his position and become a third centre back. He's always trying to overlap. He does a lot of sprints. So, and with Garcia as well, he can get caught too high at the pitch. You saw that with Alanga's chance early on. So I think they thought Disasi could just lock down that side to close the channel between the right back and right side centre back, where Alanga or Hudson-Odoi want to run into. But one of my frustrations with Disasi is that he's still getting caught high up the pitch. We might as well have had Andres Garcia.
He was, wasn't it?
Might as well have had Andres Garcia there anyway.
Yeah, it was a strange performance from Disasi in the second half. A few players, which maybe you'd expect in terms of haven't played loads of games, fell off a little bit in the second half. I thought Nana was good in the first half,
Yeah.
not so good in the bits that he played in the second. So I think it was a consistent thing throughout the pitch. But Disasi, he kind of ended up trying to play like a more orthodox right back, which wasn't really what I imagine Villa wanted at that point of the game and with the game set the way it was. But yeah, strange performance from him. I just want to pick out two people. I want to pick up Mings' second half performance because when Villa were under the cosh, I thought he was absolutely excellent again at repelling everything, and I'm just loving seeing him back, loving that he's still able to play the game at a high level after his bad injury. So I just wanted to call that out. Second thing I wanted to call out, and people would probably be surprised by this because I know me and you in particular have taken a bit of a stick for our defence of Ollie Watkins. He was poor at the weekend. Might be the worst game I've seen him have under Emery. Just not really involved when he was involved. Nothing really came off. It was a worrying display from Ollie, I thought. And is it coming now? Do you think that's stemming from Rashford's here? Rashford's played a couple of games up front, scored a few goals. Do these things just never seem to react well with Ola?
I think in terms of Mings first, I think it's the type of game that he probably loves in terms of, a little bit back to the wall, lots of crosses into the box, a lot of blocks he has to do, like real proper defending. And I think he's brilliant at that. He thrives on that, and he probably enjoys that as well. And that's the type of game he wants. I think that probably the games that are a bit more in front of him, a bit more technical, where he can't really get close to players, he has to mark the space rather than play, probably struggles with more. But yeah, he was good. In terms of Watkins, I think it was 7 passes or something. He barely got involved. When he did get involved, he was loose in his build-up. He had obviously had that knee injury before the international break. During the international break, he recovered individually. By all accounts, I think even Villa will say this. He's okay now. He's not carrying anything. He's probably not his sharpest still, but he's not carrying anything. So I think a lot of Villa fans have shown a lot of understanding with Watkins this season. He's still Villa's top scorer, so he's not had an awful season.
No,
but he doesn't look confident in himself. So there's a few times, even at the Brighton game, where he's got the ball in the left channel, and you think, okay, he's going to run, but he's very hesitant. He'll turn back. He'll try and play safe. When he does try and open his pass range up, it'll be inaccurate. He was poor, and it's coming to the point where you can say, "Oh, Rashford's here. Duran was there. He doesn't like, he prefers to be the main man." And that's true, but you're playing for a Premier League, Champions League contender. You're going to have competition for your place. You can't just play every game, even if you're not playing very well. So he does need to take more ownership of that. And it comes to the point where he had the Arsenal interest in January. I think that was developing. Maybe that changed the momentum of the season potentially, and with the unknowns of going into the summer as well, that could play a part as well. But he's physically not been his best this season for a few factors. But now at this point, you hope and you expect more from Watkins. But he might not start against PSG, but maybe the saving grace is that he's got Southampton next weekend and he can feel his boots there.
Yeah, do you think he won't start?
I don't think Rashford will be up top. Yeah.
Do you think that because Watkins started on Saturday?
No, I think you want your players at their best, and with Rashford, I think he offers you better outlet on transition at the moment. He looks a lot quicker, a lot more direct than Watkins. Watkins obviously can come on in the second half, but I just feel with Villa probably going to be under the cautious for prolonged spells in Paris. You want a player that can run the channels, that can be direct, that can get the team up the field, and Rashford's shown that he can do that. So I think he'll start up there, and then that allows you to play the 3 number 10s behind Ramsey, McGinn, Rodgers, all working and getting close to him. So I think that looks the right way to go about it at the moment.
Yeah, Rashford, good record against PSG. Always had some good games against PSG in the Champions League previously as well. So their fans won't be looking forward to seeing Marcus Rashford. That's for sure. This is interesting from Sean Reynolds. Actually, I was literally thinking the same thing. He said, "I commented on Saturday. He was nailed on to break Gabby's Premier League goal record, but now he looks in serious doubt, especially if a bid is accepted for him in the summer." I think I still hope he's here next season. That's my preference. I think a summer off will do him some good. I would not bet against him coming back and being back to the Ollie he was last season and the half a season before, but by any stretch of imagination, I still think he's really, really important. I think he's had some good games this season. I think there's caveats to sometimes when he's been off, like you say. But I still think people are writing him off too soon for me. But I suppose that if Villa do have a little bit of a rebuild in that area in the summer, then I mean maybe he'll fill his boots against Southampton next week, like you say, and break it then. But he does feel a bit up in the air with Ollie at the moment, which I don't really like.
Yeah, it does. But in fairness, I think any striker in the Premier League, Championship, League One could feel their boots against Southampton next week. So that will be a bit of a pressure acid test for him, really, because he'll be playing the game, or likely to play in a game where he's expected to score and change his fortunes. But this season we've offered a lot of caveats to Watkins. They're very well known and they're understandable. As we say, short pre-season, carrying injuries in a team that didn't create a lot of chance for him, lacking the final ball service, etc., injuries around him. But at this point of the season, we can't just keep offering a mitigation. At some points, he's got to look, and Villa have got to look, and what probably Emery's doing now in terms of him being on the bench for Rashford and thinking, okay, now you've got to back up your ideas, and now we've got to see a lot more for you. So it does feel up in the air, and Villa will sell players this summer. It's just a fact that they'll sell players. Some players that you don't want to leave, some that Villa don't want to leave, but they feel they can make do, they can adapt, and still compensate for their absence. And it's increasingly looking like Watkins is not really in the team. So if Villa do get a good offer for him, can they compensate? Can they replace him? Potentially, yeah.
I'm going to start calling you Jacob Tanswell. Trying to sell all our players on this podcast, Jacob. I don't know what's happened to you this morning. But yes, I'm trying to shift all our players, Jacob. I'm not very happy with that. Let's have a quick squiz at the league table then, Jacob. How are you? I should probably move our faces because we're actually no, we don't care about 9th and 10th, do we? We can probably keep our faces where they are. Then for those listening via audio, I've just popped up the league table. Very, very interesting, Jacob. We look well set. The goal difference is obviously a slight problem. The fact that we're on 0 and probably going to struggle to make up the goal difference on the teams around us. So that's an extra point really for Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, and Forest. Villa have maybe pulled Forest back into it a touch this weekend, although I still think they'll definitely finish top 5. Nottingham Forest. But how do you see it now? Chelsea game was awful yesterday as well. City game awful. This game in a few weeks against Newcastle feels absolutely huge. It's 6th v 7th at the moment, but I'd fully expect Newcastle to be moving up into 5th, maybe even 4th if they score a hatful against Leicester tonight. It feels like that Easter weekend game with Newcastle is going to be absolutely huge.
It does, and I wouldn't be surprised if Villa and Newcastle get in the top 4, both of them, because because Man City, I think it just
more like it, Tanswell.
If Man City look like they're just stumbling along, aren't they? Really, they don't really care about this season. The bigger bill's going to be in the summer. Chelsea, I'm surprised they've got 53 points, because every time I look at them, they drop points. Forest look, like they've ran their race really, in terms of a bit like what Villa were last year, where they've not got much left in the tank. They've got injuries. Bournemouth are the same. I think they're out of it. Fulham look good. But again, I don't think they can sustain it. Brighton, I think, are out of it as well now. So you're looking at Newcastle and Villa, and you think those two teams are the ones peaking, and they can make that late push to get in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th position as well. So I think it's looking really good for Villa. If they can beat Newcastle, beat Southampton, or not lose those two games, get 4 points out of 6 or something, I think Villa are in a really good position to get in the top 4, let alone the top 5. So it's looking very good. I must admit, a couple of weeks ago, I thought Villa weren't going to be in the top 5 and probably didn't deserve to be in the top 5 or 6. But now, I think they've had a really good, encouraging few weeks.
Yeah, it's really well set, isn't it, going into the hectic period that's coming up. Villa, of course, got to play City. We've got to play Newcastle in a few weeks as well. So some big games coming up. I know Chelsea have got to play a couple of the people around us as well. So yeah, really, really interesting how the league table is set. Villa currently 6th on 51 points, sandwiched in between Newcastle in 7th, who've got 50 but 2 games in hand, and Man City above us in 5th on 52 points. Chelsea 4th with 53, Forest 3rd with 57. It's going to be really interesting between those teams. It's going to be a hell of a battle, I think, and it's going to be tight. It's going to be close, I think, going into the end of the season. Right then, Jacob, time to go. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. It is much appreciated. Have a safe trip to Paris. I presume you'll be seeing Villa fans knocking around in Paris as well.
I'm sure I will do. So I look forward to meeting those. Yeah.
Lovely. Right then. Thanks to those that have joined us live. If you've watched via YouTube, if you could give the video a like and a comment and subscribe with your post notifications on, that would be absolutely fantastic. Via audio, if you're on Apple, could you leave us a 5-star review and let's say some words as well? That would be very, very helpful to us. And on Spotify, leave a comment and give us 5 stars as well if you feel like it. Be back. It might be today, actually. Might be doing a match preview today. If it's not today, it'll obviously be tomorrow for the PSG game. And then I've actually got a video that I'd like to do with Jacob that he doesn't know about yet, that I will fill him in on a little bit later. Might be better to do it next week, actually, when the fixtures are a little less hectic, but we'll see. And then, of course, a match reaction to PSG as well. So there'll be plenty of content on the channel this week, and there was plenty last week as well. So do go and watch or listen to that if you feel like it. Nothing else left to say, really. Have a great Monday. Hope your Mondays aren't too bad. And as always, up the Villa.